Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. I think I was here the first year, so I'm glad to have not disgraced myself, been invited back. Dinner's going to be really good. So, two events in the last 2 days point up different and important things about Muslims in America at the present moment. In Rayford, North Carolina on Thursday, there we go. In Rayford, North Carolina on Thursday, an Army major showed up at a mosque, harassed its members, left bacon there, stalked a member, followed him home, came back, brandished a firearm, made a death threat to a man he told to go home. Unbeknownst to him, that man was a 32-year Army veteran and a current Muslim chaplain at Fort Bragg, where the first individual was stationed. He's been charged with a number of crimes, but is out on bail. At the very time this was happening in North Carolina, in Louisville, Kentucky, thousands upon thousands of people were gathered to celebrate the life and mourn the death of the world's most famous Muslim, Muhammad Ali. The 2-day funeral of this boxing giant brought Islam into the American public imagination in a way that it hasn't appeared for a very long time. With the outpouring of love and praise for Ali, it is perhaps too often forgotten that he wasn't always perceived as an American hero, but for a time, in the 60s and 70s, as the very antithesis of American values, as a threat to this country. But it's right and it's proper that he be celebrated as an American and a Muslim. Muslims have been part of the fabric of this nation for more than 400 years, since before the states were united. The first Muslims on this continent were brought unwillingly as slaves from Africa. Then they came in waves of voluntary migrants in the 19th century from the Ottoman Empire as it was breaking up, settling often in the Midwest, along with many Arab Christians. After 1965, with the liberalization of immigration regulations and the lifting of the ban on Asian immigrants, which had been in this country for quite a while, we saw many from India and Pakistan and elsewhere, doctors, engineers. More recently, from the 1980s and 90s to the present, we've seen many refugees from Africa, more recently from the Middle East, but also from Bosnia. The Muslims of this nation are incredibly diverse. Although the largest percentage is African American, and there are significant groups of South Asians and Arab Americans, Muslims, according to the Pew Foundation, come from 77 different countries at least. Now, in the current climate, we often hear about Muslims as if we were one thing. But as the picture of people standing in the MFA exhibit proved, Muslims are quite different to one another. Not only are Muslims internally diverse, on most measures, Muslims are just like other Americans, and you can look at the Pew Foundation survey. Muslims recycle just about the same amount, and they're a little more likely to be on social media than non-Muslims. But basically, Muslim Americans are like other Americans, which is to say it's very difficult to generalize. Which means that if we're thinking about how we parse humanity, how we sort people into categories, the relevant category is not Muslim versus non-Muslim, but rather people who spread hate and use violence, and then on the other hand, people who seek understanding, work for justice, and love peace. And our hosts tonight fall into the latter category. Thank you.
Thank you.